Hey clickers! Today I thought it would be kind of fun to give you a peek inside my designer drawers. No, not those. Actually, my design table has literal drawers where I keep everything I need to get the job done. And so I wanted to just share it with you in case you were wondering what a professional florist has to have by her side to get through most every single day. So as you know, I kind of do it all here. We do retail, sympathy, event design, and so having these things kind of close by where I'm not always heading over to the supply station to get them just makes me able to roll through my daily orders and shift tasks really easily. So I obviously love organization. If you've seen any of my videos, I am kind of a messy person by nature, so really having great systems in place is how I keep it all straight to perform all of these different tasks day in and day out. The first theme you will see here is a ton of red stuff, and that is because my color is red. I give myself and each of one of my team members a color. And so that comes to our scissors, our notebooks, our pens. Everybody kind of has their own stuff, and we each have different scissors that we like. I can show you some of the different ones. So I use a knife here and there, but I've always just preferred scissors. So I have a couple of different options depending on the type of design or even the mood that I'm in. So we have some Ikebana clippers. These are a little bit better for precision work, and these are my go-to everyday snips. And I get these off of Amazon. You can get them in a bunch of different colors, which I really like. So each of my designers have a set of these in their specific color. So I do have a floral knife that I use, and if you're working with foam, you can also just use this floral knife to sort of cut down your edges, make it smaller, which I like. And then, like I said, we have all of these different varieties that I do use daily for different designs, but I also have two different types of ribbon scissors and paper scissors. And I do think it's important not to use ribbon scissors on paper because you don't want to dull them, and also not to get your ribbon scissors gunked up with anything that you might be cutting that have like wire through them. So my paper scissors are sometimes things that I will use if I have a ribbon that has wire in it, or even if I have to cut down like a glue dash or something. I just really don't want to use my super sharp ribbon scissors for that. Speaking of glue dots, the glue dashes, we keep our boxes and our rolls of it over here, but it's a good idea just to, you know, pull off a length of it so you have it handy. We also have these in the glue like sheets basically, which are a little bit bigger, so I keep some of those in my drawer as well. One thing you'll always see me wearing are gloves. A lot of the flowers that we work with have chemicals on them, or even just natural saps and irritants that can really bother your skin over time. So finding a good glove that works for you I think is really important, especially when you're processing flowers. So these gloves, I picked them up at Lowe's. I think they're called like Venom gloves or something. They aren't super tight fitting, but they're really durable, and so even when I'm doing something like stripping roses, I can wear these and they're gonna hold up through an entire processing session. This isn't something that I actually keep at my station, but this is a rose stripper, just while we're on the topic. I keep this over in our supply drawer so that everybody can just grab one. It's not like something that I'm using day in and day out, and it's actually, there are a couple of different schools of thought when it comes to stripping roses in the first place. So if that is something that you do just to protect your fingers and your designer's fingers, I highly recommend this style of rose stripper, just because it really protects your hands the best than all of the other models I've tried out. Everybody's got a notebook, so I'm not taking orders in this. I use this basically just to write down things that I need to remember. Anything that comes up that I just feel like, oh, maybe I need to make a note about this, or I need to remind Tiffany about doing this tomorrow. That's what I use mine for. But my notebook is mine, and what I decide to do with it and what I feel like it's most useful for is up to me. Just like Keisha, who works beside me, what she uses her notebook for might be totally different. So I kind of give everybody autonomy in that way to use their notebook however they see fit. And it really helps to keep us from having a billion little Post-its floating around everywhere. So I do use Post-its, but sparingly, and these are really just used if I need to tag something. So I'll keep these handy, so if I decide to pull a vase or maybe an add-on like a chocolate, I can just write the order number on it, tag it really quickly, and put it aside. Some of the other things that you will see here, I have wire cutters. I use wire day in and day out. So right here, I have a couple of different gauges. It's not just for corsage and boutonniere work. I think that knowing how to properly wire and tape is something that's really useful if you're doing everyday work, especially when you're working with delicate stems like ranunculus. It's not unusual for me to take one that has, kind of a hollow stem. I might dip the chenille stem in water and reinforce it with the chenille stem, or, even like a sunflower or a Gerber, if it kind of has a wonky head on it that I need to train, I'll put wire on it just to make the design more pleasing. An order pad, because you can't always stop what you're doing and run to the computer and put in an order. Sometimes you're just in it and you have to keep a phone right beside you and take an order. So again, I've got a regular pen, and then I have a pen in my color so that as I'm making notes, if I need somebody to know that I'm specifically the one who took that note, they can see, oh, this has like a red note on it or a red check, and that tells everybody else who was responsible for that. Right here in this cup, along with my wires and chenille stems, I've got 2 different sizes of card pick holders. The cardettes are just, if you're sending out dailies, you gotta have these or something like it. I also use the Ohms bamboo sticks. Right now we're out of them, and so these are just what I'm keeping handy for that. Also, at the beginning of every day, one of my designers will go around and make sure that everybody has a full pitcher of water pre-mixed with flower food. That just helps us get off to a good start, and then we can just go over and fill it up as much as we need it throughout the day. When it comes to designing, there are lots of different mechanics that you can use to create armatures and bases. We use chicken wire quite a bit, so I always like to get the coated so that it doesn't rust in the wire. I get this from my wholesaler, but you can get it, anywhere online. Typically, Amazon's gonna have it, and also some of your farm supply stores locally. If you run out, you can get it from them, and they have it in different sizes. Another mechanic is using something to bind a bouquet and then drop it in a vase. So for those things, I like to use rubber bands, or I will use the natural paper covered bind wire. So we have several rolls back there. I'll just wrap it around my fingers and cut off a length and keep sort of a little ball at my station, and a little cup that has different rubber bands from different sizes, just to suit the job that needs to be done. We have glue dashes. So these come in strips, and they also come on a roll with little tabs. Like I said, everything is sort of kept over there in one spot for my designers to go and refill their own supplies and bring back to their station. So I'll just go rip off a sheet of these and keep them handy. They have so many uses. If you've never used a glue dot, even if you're not doing, floristry work, I think these are one of the best inventions of all time. Different types of tape. So this is waterproof tape. It comes in a couple of different widths, but most often we will use the more narrow of the two. And this 1/4 inch I like to use in the green and the white. Just kind of depends on, you know, the flowers that I'm working with or the vessel. Sometimes, like, I use a lot of white ceramic, so we stock up on the white waterproof tape just because that is almost invisible when you kind of go to anchor any of your mechanics in it. We also have clear tape, very similar to essentially like a packing tape. It's just clear, small. If you're going to do a tape grid on a clear glass, I think that this is probably the best option for that. And then of course we have floral tape. So this is the tape that is used mostly when we talk about doing wire and tape work and personals work. The great thing about this is that it sticks to itself. So once you stretch it, that releases all of the wax and it becomes really tacky. So this is something that not everybody could just walk in and use. You kind of have to be trained and work with this style of tape a little bit before it's useful to you. Glue. Prom season, we stock up on this, especially for weddings. Anytime I'm doing corsages, boutonnieres, and sometimes even, you know, if I'm just needing to add something into a bouquet. Obviously, I wouldn't want to glue in something into a daily design, you know, if it's fresh material, but it can be used honestly for like adding moss or, you know, butterflies. Sometimes I just reach for the glue for something that I wouldn't even normally think of. So this is the Oasis Floral Adhesive in the tubes. This is just what we prefer. I know there are a couple of different brands out there, but this is the one that we've been using for years. Holding all of these materials, you probably see this elevated Lazy Susan. So I have a relatively short table. Some of my designers' tables are raised up to a higher level. So I like this elevated Lazy Susan for multiple reasons. First of all, it does give me a spot to, at the end of the day, if I just want to throw everything on it for a quick cleanup, I can do that. The other thing is that, you know, with these two layers, it gives you some additional height. So if I'm working on a tall vase arrangement, I would probably, if I want to use a Lazy Susan, you know, at this height of the table, I'm gonna opt to use, you know, the one that sits low, flush to the table. But if I'm doing centerpiece work, I find it really helpful to have that elevated so that it sits more as, you know, I'm designing it as the viewer is going to see it. I also think that if you have taller staff members and you have tables that are all one height, I would really invest in some of these tiered Lazy Susans just so they are getting the proper vantage point as they're designing. It just really makes everybody's life a lot easier. I got these off of Amazon. They have a no slip grip right here, which keeps everything in place. Could not recommend these more. I think they cost me about $15. I'm saving my two favorite tools for last because they're technically not even floristry tools, but in my job, I couldn't do any of the work that I do without them. So the first is a calculator. And, you know, obviously, a lot of people have recipes that they work from, and that's fine. But for us, like I mentioned before, like to give my designers a lot of autonomy. I like them to be able to use their creativity, even when they're working with a picture off of the website or a set recipe. The flowers sometimes come in at different price points. So we do keep an up-to-date price list of everything that we have, you know, so like delphinium, for instance, this time of year is coming in and pricing out around $4 a stem, but you know, maybe we've got some interesting hybrid varieties and those are closer to $7 a stem. I want them to be able to account for that, and having a calculator ready for everybody helps keep me profitable. So I am, you know, on almost every arrangement that we do, everything that goes out of here, we are accounting for the vase costs that we use, our labor markup, and then really kind of adding in ingredients as we see fit based on how expensive they are to come up with custom recipes that fit into the budget that we have. And if you don't give your designers or your team members help with that, then it's really hard for them to do that job. So we have calculators just like floating around everywhere, especially if you're answering the phone and somebody says, well, how much would it be if I needed 14 stems of carnations in a vase, you know? People call in with all kinds of crazy requests, and having a way to be able to accurately give them a quote at any point, I just think is really crucial to your profitability. My final tool, my beloved color wheel. I've had these at every station. Every designer in my shop knows how to use a color wheel. And not just like, oh, this is the primary color, this is the secondary. They are familiar with complex color palettes and combinations. And when they go to the cooler and they're picking out flowers for a flower arrangement, not only are they keeping it in budget with their calculator, but they are actually coming up with a color story that is just a bit more elevated than, oh, red, yellow, blue, that's primary. You can make a triad that goes together. We're really examining the tints, the tones, the shades, and having a color wheel that helps just spot out those things that, you know, if I'm looking at two flowers and I say, okay, my customer wants an orange spray rose, they wanted oranges, and they wanted fuchsias. And these are the two things that I have in my shop to go together. It makes my designer's job so much easier, especially on days when we're overworked, we're tired, or our brains just aren't working right, that they can lay down a flower on the color wheel and another flower on the color wheel and say, okay, what do I need to pull to make this work, without giving it a lot of thought or, you know, taking a lot of time to go through the cooler and say, oh, do I like this? Does this look together? The answers can always be found in the color wheel. So, you know, one of the easiest things they can do is say, oh, I'm just gonna bridge these two and make an extended analogous, or oh, I'm gonna take these two, split, go straight across, and I need to find a blue-green to make this work. So if you do not have color wheels in your shop and you are trying to set yourself apart from the cookie cutter designs that everybody in the neighborhood is doing, then this is the first tool you should run out and buy to help you make that leap. I hope you've enjoyed just kind of seeing some of the things that a retail florist uses day in and day out. Let me know in the comments if there's something that you think I've missed, or if there's something that you have to have in your toolkit every day to get your job done.